Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to Pre-Heresy and Codices, where I look at one Space Marine Legion per ramble, giving you my thoughts and opinions on what Codex or Codices would best represent that Legion in a 40k army list build with GW rules only, and then I go over collecting that force a little bit. So up on the chopping block, this time is the second largest Legion, and that Legion is the Wordbearers Legion. Now these guys, color scheme wise, have a color change that starts basically during the heresy and as a gradual process takes hold of the entire Legion into the post-heresy. So when they were loyal during the Great Crusade, and I'm assuming during the Unification era, when they were first called the Imperial Heralds, they have this slate gray, very kind of granite gray, almost gray color scheme. Very simple but effective color scheme. Once they embrace chaos and they start that road to damnation essentially and become the first traitor legion, officers and special detachments or whatnot start adopting this crimson color scheme, this red color scheme that's been dubbed Traitor Red. And that slowly takes over the entire Legion. So this is kind of a unique case. It's not like Lunar Wolves and Sons of Horus where it's just a new color for everyone. It's a gradual process. So if you were to play Unification era or Loyalist era Wordbearers, they'd be all gray. If you were to play what they're meant to be represented as, which is their traitor selves, you would have gray with red. You know, some gray units, some red units. So with that being said, let's look at what Codex would best represent them. Now, of course, the generic Space Marine Codex is going to work for any Legion. It's going to work here, especially if you want to play a Loyalist force of Wordbearers. It's going to work here no problem, with its usual restrictions that I'm not going to go into in this ramble, because to represent the Wordbearers kind of the way it's been intended, which is their traitor selves, I really feel this is the case where the Chaos Space Marine Codex is the way to go. Now I say that because they are the first traitors. They embrace chaos wholly and fully, and as a result they have some stuff available to them that other legions don't at this time. Bear that in mind. At this time of the heresy, the Wordbearers are really kind of indoctrinated in the ways of chaos. So the Chaos Space Marine Codex would be the way to go, and there's really few restrictions. I'd stay away from the Cult Marines, so no Plague Marines, no Berserkers, no Rubric Marines, no Noise Marines. I'd stay away from those. I'd stay away from Warp Talons personally, but you don't have to. I'd stay away from Defilers, and that's really about it. The reason I say Defilers is kind of on the fluff of the Defiler a little bit, but everything else basically is there if you want it. Just keep in mind we're talking about 30k here, so we're not talking about modern looking Terminator armor and things of that nature, but they got possessed for sure. You can use the demon engines for sure as well. If you really want a Defiler, you can make it work. I just figure, you know, just put that in there as an extra little restriction for them. Mutilators and Obliterators, if you really want to field them, you can. Just keep in mind you're going to do a lot of conversion to those kits essentially, because they're based off of a more 40 first millennium Terminator armor pattern than the pre-heresy ones. So just keep that in mind. But basically everything goes. Marks are great, icons are great, everything's basically there for the taking for the most part in that codex, which is kind of a unique opportunity here with the Chaos Codex. It does kind of maybe feel less unique for itself, because you're just basically kind of almost playing the same exact Wordbearers list maybe a 40k player is playing, but you do have these extra little bit of restrictions in there to keep in mind. And in reality, Wordbearers haven't really changed in their play style pre to post heresy, so it's going to have very very decent similarities. But anyways, that's the codex that I would recommend for this particular legion. It's one of the few, if not only, times that I really wholeheartedly recommend this codex with this little restriction. Now, with that being said, let's look at collecting a Word Bearer's Force. Now, the Word Bearer's Force, of course, no Mark 7 power armor. So no Mark 7 helmets, no Imperial Eagle emblems on the torso or anywhere else on the model, and Tartaros and Cataphractii patterns of Terminator armor only. But aside from that, there's a couple of things we can use from Games Workshop. You can use the Hellbrute kit if you want to. It's okay. And it'll work to really represent kind of a possessed dreadnought looking thing for you on the cheap, as opposed to trying to go the Forge World route when that Contemptor model eventually comes out. So you can make use of the Hellbrute model if you want to. You can also make use of Games Workshop's Possessed kit. That's going to work pretty well for you too. I'm personally not a fan of the Possessed in general. I don't like the look. That's just me not liking that look, but it's a good kit. And it can work for you here. Aside from that, you really just have the bits here and there you can make use of from the Chaos Space Marine bits and the generic Space Marine bits. You know, if you happen across Mark 6 or Mark 5 bits or whatever it is. But really, those are the two kits you can make use of proper as a whole. When it comes to the Word Bearers, like any other Legion, you're looking at Forge World. Now, the generic stuff from Forge World is going to work great, but the Word Bearers do basically have their entire range ready to go. So they do have a Word Bearers squad upgrade set. This squad upgrade set is going to have Mark 4 head upgrades, Mark 4 torso upgrades, and some shoulder pads. These upgrades are nice. They're kind of subtle, but you can definitely pick out the sculpted detail with some wash or inks. No matter if we're talking about gray or red color scheme, it won't matter. So they do look pretty cool. I do think they work very well. So that's a nice thing there. Now, aside from the squad upgrade set, we also have Land Raider and Rhino doors, and we have Erebus and Core Faerun special character series. They come together, and you can use them to represent your Chaos Lords, or if you are using the generic Space Marine Codex, some type of HQ. It's all good. You don't have to get them, but if you want some more unique looking guys to lead your force, that would be the way to go for sure. Now, they do have a Word Bearers Legion Contemptor Dreadnought, and I want to make it clear that I really do believe that when it comes to these sculpted bits and models, you can paint them up gray or red. You know, for these shoulder pads, these doors, the Contemptor, the squad upgrades, gray or red, it'll work just fine. Now, when it comes to these squads, however, I do believe there's a certain way to paint them, and that's basically it. That's just my opinion. One of them is the Galvorback. The Galvorback are basically the first possessed Chaos Space Marines. And the Galvorback, basically, it's Word Bearer sculpted detail on a more 30k era looking armor bits that are still intact enough to recognize amongst these possessed dudes. And these guys are basically in red armor. You know, I wouldn't do them in the gray at all. They're basically meant to be in the red. So that is a case where I would paint them up, kind of basically paint them up with Forge World's got them, paint them up, and you'll do just fine. Again, like I said, with the regular Possessed kit, I'm not a fan of that look just in general, but these are very nicely done kits. I can admit to that, even though it's not my cup of tea. So that's the Galvorback. The other special kit or squad that these guys have available to them to buy is the Ashen Circle. Now, Forge World paints these guys up as in gray, and I do believe even when we look at the Battle of Calth, when the Word Bearers attack the Ultramarines, I think the Ashen Circle is still, from some of the kind of teaser shots I've seen, are still gray. Now, it could just be kind of the glare making them seem gray, but I would just paint them up gray. If you paint them up red, you're not doing anything wrong. It's just that I look at it as however Forge World's got them painted them up, that will be the best way to try and emulate that particular look. The Ashen Circle is pretty cool. Their jump infantry marines. They have this cool axe hook thing, and then they have hand flamers. Now this is where it gets a little bit, not so much tricky, but things you gotta keep in mind is that we can't represent a squad full of hand flamers with the Chaos Codex or anything. So you have to get a little bit creative. The easiest way to do it is to make this a Raptor squad and make everybody count as having just kind of like wrist-mounted or underslung bolt pistols, as it were, even though it blatantly looks like hand flamers. And that way is no real confusion on who has what. They're all equipped exactly the same way, and you just have kind of a cheap jump squad. You could convert them up a little bit and substitute that arm out. I personally don't recommend doing that, because if you ever get around to building a 30k army list utilizing Forge World's Horus Heresy book rules, if you convert them up, then they're not going to properly represent the Ashen Circle. So they look cool. I don't see a real reason to convert them up. You just got to let your opponent know, hey, they just got bolt pistols or whatever you're going to do. So that's the Ashen Circle. I do like the way they look a lot, to be honest with you. Aside from that, that's really it that's usable for us in making a 40k army list build. The Primarch model is there, but not really usable for our purposes. Other than that, the unfortunate thing that I have to say here is that they don't have a transfer sheet or a brass etching sheet at all, unfortunately. That would really help extend that Word Bearers feel to vehicles and even Terminators and whatnot. But when you paint them up and you have all this other sculpted detail in and amongst your force, it should be good to go and be pretty obvious that it's Word Bearers anyway. So with that being said, that's pretty much it for the Word Bearers Legion. Remember, this Legion was the first to fall to Chaos. They are basically, you could say, responsible for the whole Horus Heresy. They are the whole thing you can blame is on Lorgar and his Legion of Word Bearers. So if you want to play the Legion that holds that dubious honor, that's the way I would recommend going about it. Just my opinions there. The next Legion up on the chopping block is another Legion I'm a fan of, and that's going to be the Salamanders Legion, so stay tuned for that one. And until next time, take it easy.